Um, so just be aware that it is being recorded. I won't share it with anyone. Uh, Hopefully you won't either. Uh, who knows what's actually going to come out of my mouth. Um, okay, a couple more people coming in. Um, okay. So like I said, welcome to Policy 210. I'm Jeff Summerlin-Long. Um, this is my who knows how many times teaching this class. Taught it basically every semester for the last 6 years. Um, just so you know, story behind the name. I was Summerlin, my wife was Long. When we got married, we put them together. Um, Met my wife at UNC, Dye Hall, Spanish conversation. So obviously I went there as an undergrad. Um, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Basic plan is I do want to sort of introduce myself, have the TAs introduce themselves briefly, um, talk a little bit, just in general terms about what the course is all about, what our goals are, how things are going to work, go over the syllabus and talk a little bit about the paper. I know you don't really want to think about a final paper on the first day of class, but it will make sense, I think, once we go through it. So this is Policy 210, Policy Innovation and Analysis. I didn't come up with a title, and I try to go after a little of the innovation part, but it is mostly policy analysis. What does that mean? It means I'm going to try to teach you how to actually evaluate public policies, to think about things empirically, objectively, make arguments using data, and basically be both a consumer and producer of policy analysis. Um, it is at its heart uh, an attempt at a scientific approach, a social scientific approach to figuring out what works and what doesn't work in terms of making the world a better place. It's a very, very generic definition. Um, I know any of you are policy majors or you talk to your parents or your friends and you're like, yeah, I'm a major in public policy. And they say, what the hell is that? Uh, that's the definition I give. Basically trying to solve social problems, usually through some kind of government action. Um, so, uh, in order to achieve those goals, we're going to go through how policy analyses are done. We're going to talk a lot about economics, since that is the dominant language of public policy. We're going to talk a little bit about politics, um, not necessarily politics so much as political institutions. Talk a little bit about ethics, equity, that kind of thing. Uh, Learn how to do cost benefit analysis. Talk about how policies spread, sort of like COVID, I guess. Um, but that's the basic idea. Yeah. It is an introductory course. That being said, I know a lot of students who I've taught in the senior capstone and who I maintain contact with after they graduate have found this class to be really, really useful from a pure utility perspective. It might not be the most exciting in the moment, but in terms of long-term skill building, I think if you engage with the material and you engage with the process, you can get a lot out of it. I feel like I had some more to say there, but I got a little discombobulated by having to run upstairs at the last minute. All right, so tell you a little bit about myself. Um, and then I'll have Laura and Thea introduce themselves. They are your wonderful TAs. Um, I'm really sorry that we're not doing this class in person, just because in the spring semester I get to teach in Green Law 101. Has anybody had a class in there? It's an awesome classroom. It's packed full of TVs, wheelie chairs. Uh,
Oh, wheelie chairs. I miss the wheelie chair.
yeah, see, uh, all kinds of fun things. And so it does kind of bum me out. Um, but uh, all right. So as I said, my name is Jeff Summerlin-Long. That is my entire last name. Uh, if you can't spit it all out, feel free just to call me Jeff. Um, Professor Jeff, whatever. I like to avoid doctor, though I am technically a doctor. Uh, okay. I've got inauguration and Biden's and all that stuff in my head. So I'm thinking about Jill Biden. Uh, Anywho, um, I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia. So in the mountains in southwestern Virginia. I grew up a Tar Heel fan. Uh, Ended up going to Carolina, followed my big brother. Went there for undergrad, as I said, met my wife. I then went to law school at American University in DC. Um, I practiced law for about 4.5 years, combination of general poverty law, landlord tenant, consumer, domestic violence, unemployment insurance, that kind of thing, and then immigration for about 3 years. I worked for an organization in Raleigh called the North Carolina Justice Center. I was what's known as a legal aid attorney, meaning I only represented low income people, and I got paid nothing. Not really, but basically nothing. Uh, Sort of like I do in this job. Anyhow, uh, I went back and got my PhD at UNC in public policy and finished that in 2011. I then went and taught in Huntsville, Alabama. Anybody from Alabama? No shout outs. You can just put it in the chat if you're embarrassed. Nothing wrong with Alabama. I taught in a poli sci department there for about 4 years, and then was lucky enough to get back to UNC, where I am a teaching associate professor, meaning I only teach. Teaching and service. I don't have research requirements, and that's why I don't get paid very much. But I really love the job. I love the students. I love being a Tar Heel. Random fact, my wife and I have 6 combined degrees from UNC. Uh, you think they'd give me basketball tickets, but they don't. I get nothing. I mean, I don't even get a free parking space. Think about how much money I threw their way. Um, Anyhow, uh, that's the basics of why they believe that I'm qualified to teach this class and other classes, uh, PhD, JD, all that. I do have 3 children. I'm just telling you this now because I will talk about them a lot. They are 16, 14, and 7. All 3 of them at home doing remote learning at the same time that I'm doing remote teaching. So it's pretty exciting around my house. I've got 2 dogs. You'll see and hear them too. Um, and I guess that's about it. Any questions about me? I'm fairly open.
What kind of dogs do you have?
One of them is a terrier boxer mix. He's about 65 pounds. The other one is a Shih Tzu poodle mix. She's tiny. Well, she's like 15 pounds, but really cute. She looks kind of like an Ewok. Yeah. Um, Funny story. There was a student, there was a policy major, graduated about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and his favorite food was tofu, and so he bought himself a white Bichon Frise and named her Tofu. I thought that was pretty awesome. Um, okay. Uh, Thea, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. So, hello everybody, this is Faye. I'm going to be the TA for this course. I'm a fourth year PhD student from public policy, and this has been the third time that I TA for this course. So if any have any questions, concerns about this course or anything about school life, you can definitely talk with me. So for myself, I do research on social policy and social norms, such as how gender roles are socialized and how it would influence individual behaviors and policy making. If you're interested in this topic, I definitely talk more about that. And I'm going to hold my office hour on Fridays between 11 and 1. You can use the sign up page on Sakai to find a slot to talk with me on Fridays. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Thea is a veteran of this class and 220. For those of you who may be taking 220 or thinking about 220, Thea can guide you there as well. Laura?
Hi everyone, I'm Laura. I'm the other TA. I'm a first year student in public policy in the PhD. My main research area is health policy, health disparities, and inequality. And my office hours are going to be on Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m.
Yeah, I wasn't totally sure if it was going to be until 6. You just said 4, so I made that up. Hope that's all right. Yeah.
Totally fine.
Okay. I should mention I do research, just I don't have to. Most of my research is actually in teaching, scholarship of teaching and learning. But my other sort of substantive area is inequality, and in particular, access to justice, access to the legal system, um, food policy, some other things like that. I think it's one of the reasons why I'm a teaching professor and not a tenured professor, is I couldn't ever really pick one thing. Which is one of the great things about this class, because you're all going to write papers on lots of different subjects, and I get to read lots of different things, and that makes it exciting, and I get to learn things as well. So very excited to have Laura and Thea. I really want to encourage y'all to utilize office hours. Mine, theirs. I have found in this whole Zoom alternate universe that the one thing that is almost better is office hours. It's easier for you to attend. Students say they don't feel as intimidated, uh, you know, and it's a way to have some human contact, sort of, and really just talk to people. So we are all going to use the sign up tool on Sakai, so that you know exactly when to log in. And especially for me, we don't have to talk about class. We can talk about whatever you want. If any of you are thinking about going to law school, if any of you are thinking about going to grad school, if any of you have any random hobbies that I would find interesting, that would be fantastic. I like odd things. I like random things. So, okay. Let's talk a little bit about how we're going to manage this semester. The syllabus is on Sakai. I will post it. I mean, I'll share it here. I think I would know how to do this better by now. A couple things I just want to be clear about from the get-go. I treat syllabi as guidance. Uh, they are not necessarily locked into stone. Um, Especially in these times that we're living in, we have to be a little bit flexible, a little bit adaptable. I will not change dates of exams unless something crazy happens. I try to stick with due dates that are on the syllabus, but there may be times where something happens and we get behind and I push something back. Just know I will never push anything forward. Okay. Um, and yeah, I'm not trying to mess anybody up. Uh, these are difficult times for all of us. If you're encountering any problems, please let us know. Again, if you just want somebody to talk to, feel free to talk to me. Um, so yeah, uh, my office hours are going to be 10 to 11:30 and by appointment. Um, you can see the link for my office hours and for both Faya and Laura are on the syllabus. Um, I really, really want you all to read the syllabus carefully. Okay. Uh, you're going to find out through the course of the semester that I'm a fairly relaxed person, um, but there are certain things that drive me crazy. And like the Oxford comma, uh, you will use the Oxford comma in this class. Um, Other things are when students email me questions that the answer is on the syllabus. Okay, just that's a good rule for all teachers. There is no required textbook. I will post PDFs of everything on Sakai. Um, Anybody who is pursuing a policy major, policy minor, or just wants some help, this Bardak book is really, really good. I'm going to post most of it via PDF and hope not to get in trouble uh, by doing so. But it costs like $5 or something like that, and is something that's very handy to have around. Um,
Hello.
I also recommend this Catherine Smith book on writing public policy. There is a companion website that if you just Google it, you can find all kinds of information. You're going to be spending a lot of time in this class working on your writing. Okay, that's one of the things that I really want to focus on. And the class is basically structured around your paper. So it does mean a lot. I follow the general grading scale. That means a 90 is an A minus, a 93 is an A. You can extrapolate from there. You're going to have 5, I call them problem sets. For those of you who are econ or math people, they're not all typical problem sets. It's just a series of questions to help you understand what it is we're looking for, what it is I'm expecting you to get, how to apply things. They're essentially practice, for exams. You are welcome to collaborate on the problem sets. You just need to list the names of the people that you collaborate with, and I don't want all 4 of you turning in the exact same problem set. There will be a midterm and a final, each worth 25. This might be something that y'all will enjoy. I really like multiple choice and true false tests. As a teacher, I find them extremely useful, but I can't do that when everyone's taking them in different places and that kind of thing. So the test will be a mix of short answers and an essay. The essays will be applying course concepts to some new material that I give you. Generally, I will send you the night before 5 or so articles, and by articles, I mean news articles, not like academic articles, about some policy problem and ask you to apply what we've talked about in class. For the policy brief or paper, I should really call it a policy analysis because a policy brief is something different. This, to me, is the core of the class. I've had to alter the structure of how we're doing it, again, because of the remote nature and because of lack of resources and things like that for grading. But essentially, you're going to be able to turn in parts of the paper at 2 points during the semester for feedback without any kind of grade that's going to count. Okay. And you will get feedback. You can meet with your grader. You're going to be assigned a TA or me. And then you can revise it. And I'll go into more details as we approach those times about what it is you're turning in. But I really, really encourage you to, trust the process here. Utilize the process. Because if you do it, if you put the work in sort of up front and you make the changes that we suggest and you do the extra research and add the extra data and that kind of thing that we suggest, there is no reason why you shouldn't get an A or minimum a B on this paper. But you have to go through the process because I'm trying to make sure that you're all gaining the ability to write about data, to write in an empirical, objective fashion while still making an argument. Okay. And I think that's a very important skill. Hold on, sorry. Forgot about the chat. Faya, you can monitor the chat because I'll just get distracted. All I saw was something about Joel Embiid and somebody pinching. Okay. This is where you need to go in and read in terms of sort of classroom policy and some tips. This is really important. If you are in an area where you know that you might have some access problems, please let me know. And we can figure out ways to make sure that you can get all the materials, that you don't fall behind, all of that kind of stuff. Most of the class is going to be asynchronous, right? Where I'm going to post recorded lectures that you're going to watch on your own time. But as you can see on the syllabus, everything is categorized sort of by week. And the optimal outcome would be to have one asynchronous lecture and one synchronous activity each week. And by activity, I'm generally talking smaller discussion groups with me and the TAs. We might do a case study. We might help, sort of answer questions about problem sets and that kind of thing. Any questions on this stuff?
Yes, will we be like notified when we have like a synchronous activity to do or something like that?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the syllabus, right, you'll see, this next week, right, you're going to be listening to a lecture on how to define a problem, like using data and that kind of thing. And you've got readings. And then on Thursday, you're going to have some kind of discussion section. And what that will generally look like is maybe I'll send out an article for you to read that I think is relevant to that particular topic, and we'll sit and talk about it. I'm not going to take attendance at these things, okay? There is no attendance policy. That said, if you know you're going to miss something and you've got a legit reason, it's never a bad idea to let me know. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a questions about office hours.
Mhm.
So I was browsing throughout the course website in Sakai, and I noticed the sign up page, but I don't see a slot in order to sign up for your office hours. Only for.
I haven't created mine yet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so I need to go in and create it.
But it's gonna be in the same place.
Yes.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah. So you'll see it up there. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
And also, if there's something that you want to meet about, the office hours are full, or for some reason I can't hold those specific office hours that week, send me an email. I'm happy to just set up an appointment as well. Okay.
So on the overview where it says like the dates, we only come to live class when it says live discussion and stuff like that. Okay.
That's right. Yep. And there will be some weeks where there isn't a live discussion section. Okay. But you will always have plenty of notice. Okay. As to whether there is or not. And anytime there is a live discussion section, and I'm going to try to record them and post them on Sakai. But if nobody shows up, then there's no discussion for you to go back and watch later on. It's kind of like a collective action problem, which we're going to talk a lot about this semester.
If there's like no live discussion section, will we have like another lecture instead?
I suppose. Is there one of those days?
I think it's just readings, right?
Yeah.
You said that there might be, so I was just wondering.
I mean, there's not going to be anything extra that's not like on the syllabus.
Okay.
I have another question.
Okay.
So when I was reading the syllabus, I noticed we are going to use throughout the course Slack, but I did not found like a link for the Slack chat.
Yep, that'll be posted under announcements.
Okay.
I'm having issues with my Slack account right now, so you'll see it. I promise. You're also going to see links to a couple of surveys that I would like for you to fill out. One of them is mandatory. The other one is optional. The mandatory one is going to be used to assign you to small groups. Okay, I'm going to assign you to a group of probably 4 students. And I want you to use those groups throughout the semester. It could be during a discussion, live session. We do some breakout rooms. But I create those groups strategically in ways to sort of facilitate engagement and learning and that kind of thing. And so I really hope that you utilize it. It's also a good way to meet people since I'm just assigning you. But you'll see those links up there too in plenty of time to do them by the 28th. None of them take very long. The optional one is really just a personal sort of bio survey. I really like to get to know my students as well as I can. And I've got a couple things that I feel like help me understand a little bit of who you are. It's nothing intrusive. As I mentioned earlier, the course is structured a lot around the paper, and these first couple of weeks are literally just the different sections of the paper. So when we're talking about problem definition, that's going to be the first thing that you turn in for feedback. Talking about assembling evidence, looking at data, using data, talking about finding criteria, talking about different types of policy alternatives, different generic tools that we can use. All of those are to aid you in coming up with alternatives for your paper, because your paper, it starts with some problem, you know. It could be, I don't know, COVID vaccine distribution or whatever. And then you're going to propose 3 different policy alternatives to make that problem better. And you're going to analyze them, and you're going to make a recommendation as to what the government at the appropriate level should do. And so it really does encapsulate a lot of what we're going to talk about. We will get into some general theories and things we know about how people behave, how people respond to policy changes. We're going to talk again some about political institutions. You need to know which institution is the right one in terms of solving your problem. I don't know where this guy is anymore, but I had this one guy who wrote his paper about legalization of weed. There's always at least one. And his final recommendation was for the president to simply make it legal. And I had to be like, dude, no. Like, literally does not have that power. So you need to know who does have the power, you know, and what some of the potential barriers are and that kind of thing. That's what we're going to be focusing on, not truly politics, but the institutional environment in which policy is made. I have your midterm scheduled for March 9th. That way you can take the midterm and truly enjoy your wellness day on March 11th. That's what they're doing instead of spring break, these wellness days. At least they're doing something. And then we're going to get into economics, very basic economics, talking about markets and how markets work. We're going to talk about supply and demand and what happens when those things change, when there's a change in price and that kind of thing. For those of you who have never had econ, don't freak out. This is probably even below Econ 101. For those of you who've had a ton of econ, make sure you still pay attention to the things that we're focused on, and then don't overthink it because I'm testing you at a fairly basic level of things that I think are particularly important. Things like Calder-Hicks versus Pareto efficiency, elasticity, being able to identify income and substitution effects, some fairly concrete economic tools that we have to help us understand what happens when policy changes, and to understand what happens when there isn't a policy or there's some problem out there that is creating an economic inefficiency. When it comes to making our arguments in our papers and that kind of stuff about why the government should do something about a particular problem, you're going to be focusing on economic reasons. Yes, there may be moral reasons or ethical reasons or that kind of stuff. But one of the major goals of this course is to make you see that everything can be boiled down to an economic problem. And when you use the language of economics, okay, you avoid arguments that can't be won. Okay, you can't argue values. So that's why we do it that way. We'll then talk about program evaluation. That is a type of policy analysis where you're looking at a policy that has already been implemented to see whether or not it worked. We'll talk a little bit about behavioral economics. I will go ahead and warn you that this is one of the lectures that I tend to move depending on how things are going with the world. So it may be at a different time, but it will be there. And then at the end, we're going to do cost benefit analysis. Now, why, you might be asking, do I wait until the end to do one of the main things that policy analysis and policy analysts do? It's pretty simple. Nobody should be doing a cost benefit analysis for your paper. Okay, that is just not even really feasible. To really do a good cost benefit analysis is beyond the scope of this course. So I wait and I teach that at the end so that no one is tempted. And then at the end, we'll talk about policy diffusion, how different governments, different levels of government pick up certain policy ideas or don't pick up certain policy ideas, and think about how policy spreads. Okay. Your final version of your paper will be due on the last day of class. That is the one that the grade will count. Again, you're going to have 2 opportunities to make revisions before that time. And then your final exam is scheduled for May 13th. That's a Thursday. It's scheduled for 12 o'clock. I'll go ahead and tell you, for both the midterm and the final exam, what I do is I send you material the day before, articles to read and that kind of stuff. I post the exam to open at 9 o'clock in the morning and close at 11:55 p.m. at night. So you've got all day. Okay, there's lots of reasons why I do that, but overall, it ends up being more efficient, especially for anybody who may be registered with ARS in terms of extra time. It's a good way to not have to deal with ARS, though, of course, if you want to, you definitely should. I wish I'd used ARS when I was in college. Oh well. Any questions on the syllabus?
If it's okay, I was gonna ask, like, so you mentioned, I think it was the paper where we like just use economics and not ethics to analyze different policy options. I was wondering, like, and you said like it's to like make it so that basically you can win an argument using economics. I'm wondering, like, in a way, like how would that apply to the real world or to the policy making process? Like when
It's a valid question, right? I mean, it's an ongoing concern about how much policy analysis is actually used by policymakers, right? If we try to maintain this idea of objectivity and this kind of stuff, are they more likely to use it or not? Anybody ever read The Onion, or is that too old? There's a great
yeah.
there's a
All the
great
time.
Onion article that
Real
the
life
headline is
opinion.
"Nation's Experts Give Up," and it's like, fine, eat 20 eggs a day, do all this kind of stuff. It's pretty funny. And certainly it's a relevant question in the political world today, as to how much science, social science, or actual science in this case, is being used by the government. There's actually a lot of research that shows most policymakers do use it. It is an important part of a broader package of arguments that they may use. The advantage is you're speaking a common language, right? And so that might be a better way to frame it in your head, of using a common language to discuss, debate, that kind of thing. maybe it's not even necessarily to win, but being able to actually sit down and talk to people about how you came to certain conclusions and what assumptions you made and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to see, when we talk about discount rates and how much we value a human life, politics plays a role there. I mean, I come from the school of thought that it's a great article by Stephen Kellman. It's called "Politics is More Fundamental Than Economics." That in the end, it's politics that decides which policies are passed, and I think that's true. It does not, in my mind, take away from the usefulness of objective policy analysis, right? Because you can use it to show you made a bad decision based on politics. So maybe that was a little bit more of a lengthy answer than you wanted, David, but there you have it.
I have a slight question about the brief.
Yep.
So the way that you worded it, or I may just be assuming, do you want us to only talk about like the US government, or can we like talk in more of a global scale if we believe that like our policy can only work if implemented in that? Like, could we talk about like the UN trying to implement something if we wanted to?
Sure. Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be a purely domestic paper. And if you want to write about policies just in another country, right? If you want to talk about, farm subsidies in Colombia, you can do that. As long as you know enough about Colombian political institutions, to be able to have a good paper. Amy, I saw your hand up.
Yes. So for those of us that are coming from an economics background and we've done policy analysis in other economics classes, would you say that there's anything that we need to be aware of for this class in terms of different approaches?
No, not really. Where I've seen students get in trouble in the past is taking a fairly straightforward question, say about elasticity, and taking it from 101 to 401, like 401 and beyond, right? And what that tends to do, it's not even necessarily that they're getting it wrong, but sometimes when you have a question designed to be answered at a certain level, when your brain goes higher than that, which is a good thing, it tends to then almost rewrite the question, and sort of see it in a different fashion than what I'm intending. It's much less of a problem, honestly, with the current structure of my exams. It's much more of a problem when I have like a multiple choice or a true false question. So yeah, and it's not that I don't want you to utilize and apply those higher economic concepts. I would love for you to. I just don't want you to confuse yourself and answer in a way that is not what we're looking for. Because as great as Laura and Faya and all sort of TAs are, everyone's at sort of different points in terms of their own substantive knowledge. And if I'm giving them a template, they need to be able to use it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that helps. Thank you.
I have a question that is kind of similar, but like in terms of students that do not have any that haven't had any exposure to policy making before or analysis, like what would be your recommendation, like to begin this course?
You know, there is no prior knowledge required for this course in terms of policy. Okay. I'm happy to give you some ideas of sort of basic textbooks, you know, and that kind of thing. The Bardak book is really good. You'll see on the syllabus, there'll often be a chapter from a book by Whelan, and you'll see it's in brackets. That means it's optional. Okay. If you haven't had much econ, I would look at the Whelan chapter because he is an economist and he's talking about policy from an economic point of view. Okay, so I post those things up there as a resource. It's you know, I don't test on the readings. The readings are there as a supplement and to help you practice applying concepts from class to new situations.
Also, when it came to in the syllabus about reading the news, it was relevant. I mean, you mentioned about paying more attention about policy news. Like I tend to look at news and I like being informed, but usually I don't know where to look specifically if I want to be finding stuff about policy. Like what would be like a good place for me to actually like go directly and read about policy?
Well, on the Sakai site under resources, there's a folder that's called news. And those are the sources that I think are the most objective. Okay. I'm not saying they're totally objective. I'm saying they're as close to objective as we have currently in the crazy media world. And Carlos, what I'll say is, you might have been reading news in the past and not see it as policy relevant. Once you start reading some of the stuff and thinking more in policy terms, almost everything you read has some kind of policy component to it, especially if it's anything related to politics, the government. You know, if you think about Facebook and Twitter and all the changes in their policies, right? Those are private policies, they're not public policies, but there's certainly a public policy component to it in that they don't want to be regulated. And so they're doing these things in an effort to avoid some kind of public interaction. That's still, you know, that's still relevant. And I think, you know, like, I mean, we have a huge change coming in this country, right? Starting tomorrow. And I think, you know, what you tend to see in new presidential administrations in the first 100 days, they love the first 100 days for some reason. Okay, they're going to push out all kinds of new policy proposals. So Biden's got this, what, $1.9 trillion stimulus package. He's got a ton of executive orders that he's ready to implement, basically just overturning what President Trump did. So, you know, for the duration of this course, I think a lot of the major headlines, provided there isn't some kind of insurrection, are going to be policy relevant. And I will also post articles especially on Slack. I'll post articles that I've read that I think are relevant to something that we've talked about in class recently. If you're looking for like specific policy news, right, there are some like sort of boutique shops out there that you can look at. There is one that it's becoming less policy. Even it's called Real Clear Policy. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Real Clear Politics. It's an offshoot of that. It was taken over a couple years ago by a new editor, and it's become fairly biased and a lot more opinion than actual stuff, but it still does have some like white papers and things like that from think tanks that you might find interesting. It's just realclearpolicy.com. You know, if you're looking for, I really encourage people to look. You'll see that I've got a couple local news sites up there. I encourage people to look, locally. There's it is biased. The organization is biased to the left, but the reporting itself is actually quite excellent. A thing called North Carolina Policy Watch. They do a lot of stuff, especially with the budget. What I've pulled up here is the general template for the policy analysis paper. And going back to the question about sort of economic versus ethical, it's not that you can't use ethical arguments. It's that I want you to focus on the economic ones. Okay. But you can go through and read this and see basically what the paper looks like. What you're going to turn in the first time is this problem definition section. What you're going to turn in the second time is actually going to be a summary of your alternatives.
This may just be me, but I'm just saying the Word document still.
This is the Word document, yeah.
The syllabus?
Oh. I pulled up this other thing.
Oh yeah, Professor, we can only see the syllabus.
Weird. Let me see.
You might have to unshare and reshare your screen.
Yeah. How about now?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So yeah, the first thing is this problem definition. The second thing will actually be a summary of this section 5. So, also on the Sakai site under paper information, there's a sample paper. So you can see a paper that got a good grade. Okay. Well, I've talked a lot longer than I thought I would. You're going to find that happens fairly often. But any last questions?
Yeah, I'd like to. I know you said that Faya was kind of an expert on the 220 versus 210 subject.
Yeah.
Maybe a question for her. It's a good idea to take both of these classes at once, in my opinion. But what's your opinion? Because I haven't taken the classes yet.
You can. Do you want to say anything about that, Jeff?
Oh, go ahead, and then I'll talk.
Okay. I have think a lot of students taking the 2 courses in 1 semester, but there are other students who take 210 first, but there are also students who take 220 first. I didn't see like any like big challenges or problems if you change the order or just take them in 1 single semester. I think that would not be any problems over there. Well, I don't really have any like suggestion to suggest me like if you want to take this first or the other one first, but I think they are, although they're all like really fundamental public policy courses, but I think they cover different topics. So that is totally about topics.
Yeah, I would concur with that, Quinn. It's really it's up to you. There have been semesters where I've taught both 210 and 220 at the same time. I think that was a little bit confusing for students, right? Because they didn't have the sort of 2 different voices, 2 different styles, and that kind of thing to contrast. But Professor Kreitzer and I are very different, and we have very different approaches to teaching and that kind of thing. And so I think it's fine to take both, but it's also fine not to.
That's great. I'm just making sure that overlap isn't going to be like insanely mundane or anything like that. I expect them to both help me in each other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying there's no overlap, but it's mostly going to be that one sort of lecture on political institutions.
Right. Well, that's what I'm here for. So that's good.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, sorry, I'm muted. So the readings, are those supposed to be done before the date they're listed under or after?
I think you'd get the most out of it by having them done before you watch the video. It's up to you. I mean, my personal approach, okay, and everybody has different styles of learning and that kind of thing. What I think is generally the most useful way to approach classes where you're not necessarily going to be tested on the reading, especially like in class with a pop quiz, is skim the readings, listen to the lecture, and then go back to the readings if you're confused. Right? Skimming the readings, what that does is it primes your brain. Okay, it lets it know what's coming, which makes it more receptive when you're actually listening and you're connecting it back to the major topics, that you sort of skimmed through. If you want to be like a really, really good student, you skim the readings, you go to class or you listen to a lecture, and then you do the whole reading. And you take notes and you link it to your notes from the lecture.
And like right now, so I can kind of keep a mental schedule, the readings probably the only thing we need to like worry about at this moment, or is there anything else I should? Okay.
No. And again, I don't test on stuff that I don't talk about in lecture. I mean, depending on how you learn and that kind of stuff, you can totally get an A in my class and not do any of the reading. I shouldn't say that, but you have to know yourself. Okay. And if you're that type of learner, most people aren't.
Thanks, Professor.
Sure.
So-
Zach had a good comment in the chat just to note that there, when it comes to the 220, 210 same time, there are 2 papers due at the very end. They're very different papers. Okay, mine is more of a traditional kind of term paper, policy analysis. With Professor Kreitzer, it's much more concise. It's much more about formatting, and so it is kind of different. I am also okay with people using the same topic for both papers, because the heart of the paper in this class is the alternative section, the problem definition and the alternative section. And you can probably use a decent amount of your problem definition from this paper for the 220 paper. But you can't use anything from there for my paper. All I ask, when you do that, and you'll see that when I send out the paper topic survey, tell us if you're doing the same topic for both. And then we may ask just to see both papers. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a quick question as well. What resources do you recommend for a quick summary of econ ideas and vocabulary if you have like just no background on it?
Khan Academy, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I mean, yeah, I know people get to college and they're like, Khan Academy, so high school.
I
Oh
mean, their
man, it's
videos
great.
are great for other stuff. So, all right,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, there's a lot on Quizlet. Um, yeah, Joe's right. Roll Call is a good site for keeping up with especially legislation, one type of policy. Um, yeah, and Amy, I've definitely used Investopedia myself. So usually whenever you Google basic economic concepts, Investopedia is one of the first ones. So. All right. Well, welcome again. I'm excited about the semester. I really like this course. I think it's interesting. I think it's useful. As with all courses, especially online courses, what you get out of it is going to depend almost 100% of what you put into it, and trying to stay engaged. And I know that there's lots of stuff going on out there that can divert you, that can distract you, that can just keep you in bed all day. And I just ask that let me know. Okay, I will be as flexible as I possibly can. I have to ask one question. Matt Spokella. Do you have a brother named Anders?
I do.
Did he go to Carolina?
He did. He graduated last May.
Yeah. Okay. Tell him I said hi.
I will.
All right. Well, if you have questions, feel free to email me. Definitely use office hours with Laura and Faya. And hopefully I'll be seeing a lot more of you in the next couple of months. All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank
I
you,
have
man.
one.
Thank you.
I have a very
Thank you.
basic kind of babyish question.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
So I skimmed through like the introduction. No, I didn't actually do that. I just literally opened up the file for the introduction for Burn or something like that. The file you gave us, are we supposed to stop at the 8 points part?
For the Bardak reading,
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. I wasn't quite sure where we were supposed to stop.
Should have. Sorry, I'm just looking on my. Let me go back up and look at it. Yeah, stopping there is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically you're reading the whole introduction, but that's not that far off.
Well, no, some other part where it says like part 1, because I didn't know if you wanted us to read like all 21 pages or just up to like where it says part 1.
Up to where it says part 1.
All right, cool.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you all for participating and asking questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't hear the specifics, but I heard that last semester didn't go smoothly for you. Is it anything worth casual conversation or?
Um, it was a tough semester for me mentally. And we had combined with 170 students and 2.5 TAs. So just didn't have the resources that we needed, which ended up being frustrating for a lot of students. And when students are frustrated, that means I'm frustrated. And so that's it.
No. Okay, that's a lot better than something I thought it was like something at home or something with the kids.
No, no, no.
I joined last semester and then I got scared because it was my first semester here and I had way too many classes. And I
Oh, yeah.
also, with every inch of my apartment was boxes still. So here I am, round 2.
Yep. Okay, well, glad you're back.
Hopefully it's better for both of us this time.
Yes.
I will catch you whenever we have the next live thing.
Sounds good. All right. Bye, Zach. Faya, Laura, do you have any questions or anything?
I'm good.
No, no. I was glad the class ended earlier so I could join this one.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. All right. Well, I will wait, I need to stop recording this thing.